We go, no, I need it.
Give it one more minute. The Monday, June 23rd to order, roll call please.
Counselor Grants,
Here.
Darla. Here. Ekman,
Here.
Matheson. Absent. Mayor Scott,
Here.
you're the forum.
Perfect, thank you. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alrighty, moving on to the consent agenda. From our last council meeting, made that change that Councilor Jarvis had wanted for the, council minutes. Correspondence, kind of the same typical things we usually see in there, with the addition of the, water terminal estimated kind of services estimate. Just looking through those, kind of similar to last year regarding kind of the types of services provided. Just with the more people being anticipated to be attending there, some of the costs of the services have increased, just looking at the increased time and things like the police officers, both of them. That would be the only thing that I saw that was kind of different than we usually have. Any other discussion or questions regarding the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'll ask for an approval of the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion from Councilor Graham, second from Councilor Zavella. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Moving on to the guests and citizens forum. Does anybody have anything to say or any questions or anything? Hearing none, we'll move on to reports from staff. City Administrator Wyder.
Yeah, so Monday, Thursday, Friday I'll be out, down at the League Council or convention down in. But I will have my own meal on me, so if anybody needs to get over me. You have the reminder for everybody that the Bloom event is, Wednesday at 9 AM. So there'll be a delegation here and some people flying in from the record of Bloom. And.
Flying in?
Where
Where they come from? Do you know where they're coming from?
Oh, he's, oh, Ohio. Yeah.
Okay.
But that's a big deal, and can't even talk about it all when we get to them, but that's what I have to, when I get, some of the financial discussions here coming up.
All right, thank you for that. Public Works Director Spencer.
Yeah, so I'm sure everybody's aware with the weather we've had in the last weeks, not really conducive to the road construction project that we have going at the same time. We do have a couple different rain gauges in the city we go by on the golf course and the sewer plant. I've heard totals of 7 to 8 inches in the last week since last Monday. That being said, we had several washouts in town in areas. You know, that gravel where it meets blacktop, etc. I did have to call people out on Saturday for that. We had several trees down and we're still getting trees down. With the ground as saturated as it is now, every time the wind blows, we have trees uprooting, which is pretty, it's this way. As I said, the road project, it's not helping them at all, so I think they were hopefully optimistic that they would be far enough along this week to get the detour area bypassed, and I don't want to speak for them, but I don't see that happening this week, so I don't look for that to happen next week. Today we got a couple of the pickleball nets out that we have them all assembled. The ones we bought came in the form of assemble yourself, so. We got them in, we got them all assembled, they're all sitting down in the shop, I think a couple have got put out today, the rest of them will get put out tomorrow. Got a bunch, the last of the trees planted except for one that will be using during the program or ceremony down there at the Midway Pavilion on Monday morning. As Dean mentioned, American Bloom was the outfit that gave us a grant for a lot of the landscaping and finishing up of some of the projects around there, so. That's Wednesday morning at 9. Other than that, I think it's just agenda items.
Perfect.
Any other questions?
Sounds very busy. Thank you for all the work you guys do. City Attorney Wilkie.
Thanks, Mayor, I don't have any reports.
Moving on to report.
I will also be at the League of Minnesota Cities Conference, Wednesdays through Friday. It's not till the afternoon, so we'll be at the Bloom event and then head down there and get educated for a couple days. Update on the chamber, we're gonna have a discussion, with Sharon Stutzman about statues. I know she contacted the city too and thought they were city property, but those are the chambers and we cannot pay her any type of rent or, we can't reimburse her for having those on there, so we're gonna have a discussion, with her about what she wants us to do with them, and we'll see where that leads. And then also just a little update on Water Carnival, wristbands will be in businesses to purchase already this coming week because we have $10 pre-sale. But at the gate, they will be 20, so Friday when the gates open, they'll be 20, so we're really gonna try to advertise for everyone local to get them early and in the stores, so you get the same $10 price for those. And there's a couple new additions up at the 3 fields, the Catholic Church is also going to have a bounce house up there for kids to use, and then we have a vendor doing mini donuts and slushies up there, so a little more activity up there, so people don't feel kind of so stranded when they're up there with, I mean, they love the burgers, but they'll have some sweets to choose from, and then the kids will have something to do with the bounce houses as well. And that's about it for now.
All right, thank you. Moving on to.
I attended the water meeting last week, Jake was there also. He brought up that he would like to have another tour made of the new facilities. We would appreciate it if other council members. I think it was Sherry and I went to one in February.
Yep.
And he'd like to see other people there, so everybody knows what's been going on, the money that's being spent. They also talked about the continuing new construction in the caisson and on the building that's being built there, right there in Aurora. In addition to that, from what Sherry had commented about Sharon Stutzman, I had responded to her email and we've gone back and forth a few times. There's really nothing the city can do for her, but I did refer her to commercial appraiser in the county so that she can have a review done of the value of the store. Especially in light of the information that's out there in the very poor condition of the building. And hopefully she can get some relief through that thing. That's all I have.
All right, thank you for the update, Council.
I went to the library board meeting last week. They are full into the summer reading program. I think she said about 75 kids. Lots of fun activities over the summer for them. And that's about all I have.
Sounds good, thank you. Council Mattheson is gone on my end. So yes, the Birch Cove beautification event is on Wednesday at 9 AM at the community building, kind of outdoor shelter area. There'll be speeches given, planting ceremony, and that's some social time. And then refreshments and pastries, are going to be provided. So if you're thirsty or hungry, stop on down. And then regarding the mountain bike path, I spoke to Jim, after the HOA meeting. Kind of talked with him, kind of through our ideas that we had talked through last council meeting. So just kind of, him focusing on reaching out to the folks like Elite, since that's their kind of land over there. And kind of him doing the work as needed. And then if he has questions or needs some help, like some sort of letter of support for, kind of fixing up trails over there, he can reach out to us and coordinate with us, as needed, so it's kind of, the discussion we had, it went well. So no real updates on that, so we're just kind of wait to hear from him on that. But yeah, other than that, I don't have anything about those. And then, yeah, during the public forum, prior to this council meeting, some discussion regarding the full school had been had. So the county, has sent out bids, to look at demolishing that, they got a bid. Accepted a bid, so now we're just kind of going through the process of coordinating with those folks that, the bid, they accepted the business through. So hopefully that'll be happening soon, they didn't give any sort of specific, time frame or date on when they're gonna be looking at doing that, but, they did the bidding, found somebody, so now we're just kind of going on the next steps there. So we're excited about that. Yeah, other than that, nothing else. Nothing for old business, moving on to new business, 11.1, Max Gray change order number 2. Dean, maybe you can speak to this, I don't, Kenny, do you still have these meetings?
These are the change orders you already approved, they're just finally getting into us. One was for the concrete repair that underneath the boards. And then the other one is for that steel inside the building. It's probably the new version.
So if we've,
So this change order for the cement came in less than what they estimated when we first provided it, it was significantly less.
and then we've approved, and what we have to do now.
Approved, wow. I think. We should, well, there's probably one that I probably should approve them.
It's a new cost.
We had estimated cost for the cement, which is the final cost for it.
Yeah, we made you guys aware of the estimated cost and the fact that they needed to have approval to go ahead and do it. But the actual change order amount, we didn't know, because they were only gonna charge us for time and materials to do so, and as Dean said, it came in significantly less than what they did projected. So at one council meeting, you guys were given the contractor the green light to complete the repair, it had to be done before the floor was poured. But to officially submit the change order, we needed the numbers. Which you'll find there.
Oh, this commercial refrigeration system for their change order request, was there refrigeration underneath that dashboard area?
No,
No affected?
no, so when they cut out and removed the old floor, this was the concrete under the boards directly above that. And that was very deteriorated, so they cut out an extra couple feet of that, times about 30 feet long or whatever the dimensions were. And then they had to hammer drill and anchor it in and pour the new section of floor there. Originally, I think they were estimating it cost 13 or 14,000.
Yeah.
It's like $8,000 actual.
It's good to hear that the cost went down a little bit. Any other questions or points to discuss? So with that, I'll take a motion to accept this change order number 2 with the actual figures, as they are.
I'll make a motion.
Motion from Counselor Ekman. Anybody that'd like to second or support that?
I'll support that.
We have a support from Counselor Grant. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Moving on to 11.2, culvert repair for Hampshire Canterbury Trailer Park bid.
So this one, I can speak there too. So we already received the funding for this is from FEMA. So it's just a matter of, then we'll run out for bids and we can accept the bid, we work done. Those 2 little culverts by the park and then.
There's one on the trailer court road by the park, and there's one up on the corner of Canterbury and Hampshire by the whole school. They both, these areas both failed during the June 18th storm last year, washed out and the road collapsed in a couple of small spots. We did some temporary repairs on them, submitted to FEMA for reimbursement. We received a check from FEMA, which was, so then I solicited bids from 2 different contractors for those repairs, and they came in less than the check we've already received.
How far in the road did that happen?
Well, they both make a big T, So there's catch basins on either side of the road, they come to the center and go to a manhole. In both spots, they fail, you know, towards one side of the road, but as.
What I'm wondering is how far off is something?
Oh, it is up, beyond our easement,
Okay,
yes. But, I was told to seek, because it's part of our storm drain system that is failed. I was told to repair it and seek estimates to get it repaired. So. This would, repair the section that is in the street. Again, just like Westover, I'm sure we're gonna be chasing, it's all corrugated pipe, that's 70 years old, so we're gonna be chasing. Rotted pipe, but this will get the sections in the road that is failing fixed. So if future. Repairs outside of the road need to be done. This will get the holes in the road fixed.
CC Winger came a little bit underneath the.
what's that?
CC Winger is a little bit under. But yeah, well,
You mentioned the funding comes through FEMA on this.
we already received the funding for this, they paid out on the estimated value, the estimated cost, which is really close to what you guys were to.
Did FEMA do that because of the storm then?
The storm.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we submitted like 4 different things to FEMA after the June 18th storm last year. Westover, these 2 culverts that collapsed. There was also, some money. We had done September of 23, we had a big windstorm, remember when we lost about 1,000 trees in town and surrounding town? We had done all the city public works had done all the debris removal. For that, we submitted for that as well, and believe it or not, got reimbursed for it. So we got about a $30,000 check for something we did 2 years ago.
And there's still 2 open projects, I knew we were gonna receive another 9,000 for emergency readiness or something. For some flooding, and then the big one, Westover, is still hanging there. So. Going back and forth with FEMA on that, I reached out to them last week to get an update and so give them an update for the final verdict.
Yeah, we have been kind of told no twice, if you will, on Westover, but both times we've kind of appealed it or. Questioned, they asked for more information, we provided them with more information. In the last correspondence we had from them, they were sending it to their engineering team for review, which. I thought was the most optimistic thing we've heard.
Yeah, and he has reviewed it, but he hasn't updated back to my contact that I'm going through. So that's, that would be like a $1.1 million project, maybe even more, if we did the whole road, then they're the kind of. They're looking at what part was damaged versus doing the whole road, so. If we can win in that for 900, no, it's down to 600, but either way.
FEMA typically reimburses up to 60% of the project cost. Like Dean was saying, over $1 million, we were optimistically hoping for like 600,000. Now they're saying that they're only seeing significant deterioration in one portion of the pipe on the north end of the road. So we've lessened our ask, I guess, hoping for something rather than nothing. So still haven't.
It's looking more favorable than it did a month ago.
All right, any further discussion or questions regarding the culverts that we talked about at the beginning of that discussion? Hearing nothing, I'll ask for a motion to accept the replacement for repair of the culverts, and then go ahead with CNC Winger.
So moved.
Motion from Councilor Jarlett, anybody that would like to second or support that?
I'll second.
We have a second from Councilor Ekman, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Moving on to 11.3 and 4, 2025 cannabinoid and tobacco license application. Jenna Oat at the golf course, the Golden Putter Lounge, submitted the license application to sell tobacco and then cannabinoid at the city-owned golf course clubhouse. So we're just looking for the first pieces of this, to approve the cannabinoid license application, and then that obviously would be subject to all the documentation being submitted and background check being cleared and so on, but what we typically do for that business. So is there anybody that would like to make a motion to approve the cannabinoid license application, just pending the completion of that documentation, those background checking and different types of things?
I'll make a motion.
Motion from Counselor Ekman, anybody that would like to second or support that?
I'll second
We
that.
have a second from Counselor Grant, all those in favor? Aye,
Aye.
any opposed? Nay. Counselor Jarva, nay. Okay, and then Counselor Grant, myself, and Ekman. Aye, so motion carried. Moving on to 11.4, so this is kind of similar to that, but this is for the tobacco license application and like the cannabinoid piece of it, subject to all the documentation being completed, submitted, and then the background check being cleared for that. Is there anybody that would like to make a motion for that?
I'll make a motion.
Motion from Counselor Ekman, anybody that would like to second or support that?
I'll second.
We have a second from Counselor Grant, all those in favor? Aye, any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. And then the last piece, just regarding prorating, those licenses, since we'd approved them, would we like to, prorate those in the way that we do for the liquor license fee, due to the clubhouse not being, open for the whole year. The fee is $150 for each license for 2025. June through October, would be $62.50, each for a total of $125. So I think I would be in favor of prorating that due to, yeah, the golf course not being open year round. Anybody else have any sort of thoughts, feelings on that?
That's how we've always done the liquor license, with prorating it.
That, I guess that's what it sounded like.
I mean, if that's what we do for the liquor license, it would make sense to do it for the other ones. I just wanted to see if that's, yeah, how we typically did it.
So from my understanding, yeah, prorate the liquor license piece of it. So is there someone that would like to make a motion for prorating those in the way that we do for the liquor license fees?
I'll make a motion.
Motion from Counselor Ekman, anybody that would like to second or support that?
I'll second.
We have a second from Counselor Grams, all those in favor? Aye, any opposed?
Abstain.
Counselor Jarvis abstains, motion carried. Moving on to 11.5, 2025, Highway 110, County Road 665 project financing. Is this what Shannon is speaking to?
Shannon. Evening, Mayor, members of the council, Shannon Sweeney with David Brown Associates, we're municipal advisors in the area of public finance. Here this evening to present a resolution essentially awarding the sale of bonds to fund the county state aid highway 110 and the county road 665 utility reconstruction projects. We've awarded a construction contract, projects are underway. We have a total estimated project costs of about $1,100,000, which includes finance costs and $43,038.89 project contingency. Ultimately, we had recommended the utilization of Minnesota Rural Water's funding program in order to provide the project financing. It has pre-negotiated issuance costs, which are lower than most traditional methods for selling bonds, and ultimately, it's the same lender that would be purchasing the bonds that also funded the arena project. So, we've recently worked with them, they're familiar with the community, and they are willing to provide the financing over essentially a 20-year term with 19 principal payments at an interest rate of 5.25%. The call date on the bond issue, which would be the first opportunity to prepay, would be February 1st of 2032. it's pretty standard to have, call protection, it's called, or the inability to prepay for the initial period of the life of the bond issue. If we look to shorten that, it would typically impact the interest rate of the bond issue, meaning it would go up a little bit if we wanted to prepay it more quickly. Given the needs in infrastructure that we have, I didn't anticipate that that was a top priority because we're gonna be looking at funding a variety of projects. I did do a projection, forward-looking projection of both the water and sanitary sewer utilities, and ultimately, I should say combined sanitary and storm sewer utilities, because we have our funds that will flow through that same enterprise. And with the rate increases that were made for 2025, my expectation is that we have sufficient rates and charges now in place to make the debt service payments. The only significant fluctuation we have is when we have issues at the water treatment plant, most likely, and significant repairs there. And short of that, we've made an increase that at least presently, I believe would be sufficient in order to make this debt service payment. It would be split between water and sanitary sewer because that's the work that we're doing with our average debt service payment at about $93,000 per year. About 77,000 of that would be from the water enterprise. And about 20,000, not quite 20,000 from the sanitary sewer enterprise. Ultimately, if you choose to proceed, the Freiberger Law Firm, which has served the city as bond counsel in the past, has prepared an award resolution. Providing for the award of sale under the terms that I just described. And so with that, I'm happy to answer your questions regarding the information that I provided.
You used the term call protection.
Yes.
Who or what is actually being protected from the city paying off the bond early? I mean,
The investors that are willing to purchase the bonds have an expectation to receive interest for a specific period of time.
Okay. But I mean, it's like me going.
We can shorten the call date and pay a higher interest rate if you choose to do so.
But I'm just thinking that if the city was to pay, it's like me going out and getting a loan for the vehicle, that's what the city's doing in the bond. Yeah, the quicker I pay that off, the better off I am. But I get what you're saying, the investors that are.
I agree 100%, but when we make this decision, it's based on, do we think we'll actually be in a position to pay it off early? And when we're looking at a Westover project, a water treatment plant facility that we're gonna join where we have significant water needs, you know, that will probably be financing as well. I thought the likelihood of wanting to pay this off early with cash, particularly when our water fund is presently at a deficit, was not likely.
Yeah, so I get it, I just,
Yeah,
you know,
I should point out one. So I have two different agenda items that are split apart, so we're actually talking about 11 and 12 as well, so the actual driver documents in the back.
okay.
So
that's the action item associated with the funding, so ultimately, when we get to that.
Does it say here the first principal payment isn't due until February 2028, so we just be paying interest payment
That's correct.
until then?
Yep, ultimately, we wanted your rate increase to have some time to have effect and accumulate some cash in your water fund. As I mentioned, even by the 24 audit, we ran deficit, but with the increase, I'm projecting that we're gonna generate some surplus cash, which I'd like to see us accumulate as we get into some of these other projects. Because we'll have costs in advance of funding that we'll wanna have cash to pay. And ultimately, if we don't have it in the water fund, we're taking it from the general fund or the sewer fund, and ultimately, we're trying not to do. So.
So we've already approved to make this project, so this is just why this way to actually pay that, so if we don't agree to this, then. Not good. It's not good, basically, yeah. But yeah, does anybody have any other sorts of questions or any sort of discussion that you wanna have with Mr. Sweeney?
And to be clear, you're under no obligation to award this. As I told your city administrator, this program. You know, once application is made, we're able to fix an interest rate. Have documents drafted and present them to you for consideration. So if you chose not to award this evening. You'd be under no obligation to pay any expense associated with the transaction. So, just so you're clear on that, you haven't incurred expense until you choose to borrow the money.
Yeah, being that we've already approved, we wanna go ahead with the project, I'd make a motion to. Yeah, approve the financing.
I'll second.
So a motion from Councilor Grant, second from Councilor Travel, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried.
One correction I'd like to make from my memo to the
Yeah.
schedule. I had indicated in my letter that we were gonna close on July 1st. My coworker moved that off 2 weeks in order to make sure that we had the credit enhancement program approval in hand. We're using a state program through the Public Facilities Authority, which is a limited obligation on the part of the state to step in and make the debt service payment, which helps us to achieve a little bit lower interest rate. So we've used that program. It takes a little bit of time to process that. And so the closing date on the schedule is the 16th of July. So we're ready. Yes. So hopefully that's within a timely enough manner so that your first pay app can get covered or at least.
Well, we're gonna count that part of it.
Yeah.
Bad.
You would have funds on hand that day. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Shannon, so we still have to do the resolution? Or-
That's kind of the action I assume they were taking was but if you want, it's a separate action. Ultimately, the sale is awarded by a resolution that was prepared. When Councilmember Grams made the motion, I had just assumed she was authorizing approval of the resolution.
So approval of the financing, let's just jump to 11.12 because it makes the most sense. So I'll ask for a motion just to approve the resolution to pay total the bill. So, one from Councilor Travel, anybody that'd like to second or support that?
Second.
We have a second from Councilor Grams, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion. There we go. Thank you.
And then, just as an update, we are working, or I am working with your staff, including your consulting engineer on the Westover and water treatment projects and reviewing funding for those, and I've made some recommendations that we're pursuing, and we'll continue to do so. We have some components on the Westover project, including street reconstruction, that would be a lot easier to implement if we could get some free money, including the FEMA money for that component. And so your staff is working on some of those items, and I'm following up with Bolton and Mink on ultimately the funding applications for water treatment, so.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right, yeah, thank you for all the work you do, we really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
All right,
Thanks, Shannon.
yeah, thank you. Moving on to 11.6, have equipment operator hire recommendation, I'll throw that one to Kenny.
Yeah, so, when, Steve Peterson made the transition out to the golf course, he left a vacancy at the, Public Works Department for a heavy equipment operator. We posted externally for that position. I think we had 16 or so applicants for the position. 6 of them met the criteria, and we narrowed it down to 4 based on the scoring of the applicants. We interviewed all 4 of them. And we all came to, I think it was a unanimous decision on Kevin Holden. So it was our recommendation, the hiring committee's recommendation to the council to hire Kevin Holden pending all the testing required for the position.
Yeah, I guess being part of the interviews, it was definitely a hard decision, there was some really good applicants that were a part of that process. But just Kevin specifically, he brings a lot of experience from a lot of different areas, so I think he's a very well-rounded person with a lot of experience in
Yes.
city-specific things and then non-city specific things that are kind of essential for doing the heavy equipment. Yeah, just my 2 cents, anything you wanted to add to that, Dean?
No, I missed the Kevin Omen interview, but I think that's a very good selection. That'd be my recommendation to you.
All right, I will take a motion to accept the personnel committees or hiring committees recommendation to hire Kevin Omen to the heavy equipment operator position pending successful completion of background check and then drug testing and kind of the typical things we do with hiring employees. Is there anybody that'd like to make a motion for that?
I'll make the motion.
Motion from Counselor Ekman, anybody that'd like to second or support that?
I'll second that.
We have a second from Counselor Grant, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Moving on to 11.7, resignation of blight officer. So our current blight officer, Jordan Hernosky, has resigned from his position. We sent in a letter to the council for that. So the first motion we'll make is to accept that resignation. So if anybody that would like to make a motion on that?
I'll make a motion.
Motion from Counselor Ekman. Anybody that'd like to second or support that?
So moved.
We have a second from Counselor Charla. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. And obviously with the vacancy, we'll have to post that position and then go through the typical advertising and hiring for a new light officer. So is there anybody that'd like to make a motion to approve the advertising and hiring process for doing that?
I'll make that motion.
Motion from Counselor Grant. Anybody that'd like to second or support that?
A second.
We have a second from Counselor Ekman. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Remember the dates, having said there's some issues with the dates. So just, update, obviously,
We'll
updating.
update the date. We have to post it in the 1 week longer than already.
Oh,
We did it, something expressed interest in it already, so it's good.
yes, lots of folks have been, interested in blight and making sure that's being taken care of, so I expect a lot of input to be. Moving on to 11.8, Public Works, heavy equipment operator retirement. You wanna speak to that?
Sure. So, a couple weeks ago, one of my, heavy equipment operators, my senior heavy equipment operator at this point, we've known this is coming for a while. He's 64, gonna be 65 in September. That was his target date to retire. He let me know a couple weeks ago that his last day of deployment or last day of work will be July 10th. He wants to exhaust his vacation, which he has enough approved to get approved to his target date, so we'll be losing him in July. Well, I have a feeling about the same week that the one will be starting, I'll be losing another one, so.
Can you
comes
use the existing list you got?
We can, however, the posting has to be posted internally again within the union. Those are union positions. And I think this time, my mechanic / operator would like to make the transition to just straight operator. He didn't the last time around. But he said that, he was actually just waiting until Mark made his announcement to retire, and that's when he would like to make that transition. We didn't know it was coming this close together, but I think Tammy's got it worded for the posting that it's gonna go posted internal within ASME first. If by chance Zach has a change of heart or change of mind that he wants to, then the posting will go external. And then, I don't know, I guess we'd have to have a discussion on whether or not we wanna go back into the pool of candidates that applied for the last opening, or if that's allowed, I guess I don't know the technicality of that.
Do you happen to know, Joel?
I'm not sure.
Oh,
Is that same position, same pay grade?
Yeah, they are. Traditionally, everybody, including myself, who's ever started at the city as the mechanic / operator, has made the transition to just straight operator. What does benefit the city by doing so is that we always have a backup mechanic. And right now, Mark Isaacson, the guy who's retiring, was the mechanic at one point, he is my backup mechanic now. So if by chance Zach were to choose not to, if he wanted to stay in the mechanic role, I no longer have a backup mechanic. So whenever he's on vacation, sick, anything like that, we don't. You know, ambulance breaks down, something like that, we don't have a mechanic. Everybody's always understood that when they make that transition from mechanic to operator, that they kind of fulfill that role, and it's always worked out fine, but. So I guess I'm not, you know, although I don't necessarily wanna lose Zach as my mechanic, I also am retaining him as the backup, so we'll always have it. So if we say hire the new one and they didn't work out, or they didn't stay long, we have one to fall back on.
So we'll have to hire a mechanic then.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think in the next part here, so once you get done with 11.8, I can speak more on 11.9, but that's really.
okay, 11.8, anybody would like to make a motion for accepting, Mr. Isaacson's, letter of intent?
So,
We have a motion from Councilor Java, anybody would like to second and support that?
I'll second.
We have a second from Councilor Ekman, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried, so 11.9. Is the, approval of posting internally, and then externally if there's no letters of interest. So did you have anything to add to that, Kenny?
No, just like I say, I think this, getting done on one council meeting speeds up the process a little bit. It'll get posted internally, if nobody applies, it'll go externally. And, we won't have to wait 2 weeks for another council meeting to put that on there, so.
And then we had a job description attached for the heavy equipment operator. Is there any sort of changes that you would recommend to that? I know we talked about the driver's license piece of it, but
Yeah. No, this,
looks good.
yeah, this looks good, this is the current, job description that we use for that position. Zach, our current mechanic / operator, does meet all these criteria for it, so there shouldn't be any hurdles there or any reason to not.
Anybody have any other questions for Kenny?
is this a higher paying position than straight mechanic?
No, they both pay the same.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to, approve the initial, posting of it internally, per the ASME contract. And then if there's no letters of interest received within the specific timeframe they, agreed to, then we would just move to, posting it externally. So does anybody like to make a motion for that?
I'll make a motion.
Motion from Counselor Ekman, anybody that would like to second or support that? Counselor Jarvis will second, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Moving on to 11.10. Max grade arena pay request number 9 in the amount of $669,820.18. So to provide all figures for that. Looks like it's 55% completed. Anything to add from Tammy or Dean?
55% completed, that's about, the remaining funding for that, a lot of it's gonna be coming out of the Mighty Ducks grant, as well as the state grant. Finish some paperwork on that one, but
So if we approve it, we're able to pay it.
yeah.
So yes, yeah, in their email that they provided, the concrete floor surface is in the rink. Cured and completed, bleacher package was approved by the state, and the vendor will be on site this week, which was the 13th of November.
Did they provide an update on the lead plan of the features?
Yes,
Last week, maybe.
two different lead times, we have a stationary set of bleachers on one side, retracting or retractable set on the other side. The stationary set now looks like October, and the retractable set, they said could be as late as early December. But they were gonna let it under to try to get it.
Are these wood and metal or strictly all metal or?
They're metal framework with plastic seating, as well as like. The riser area in between each stem has a wood backing in it, so they're kind of a combination.
Is it individual seats or just a bench?
It's just a bench, I believe. You pick the colors, they'll be silver color or a grayish color framework along with red plastic, both sides, so.
Why such a long lead time? I mean, are they just being ordered now? Or-
Yes,
Oh,
we had to wait for the state approval that I mentioned in here. That took a lot longer than expected, then a couple changes had to be made when they got to the state's desk. A couple of the measurements didn't line up for ADA requirements or something in their mind, they kicked it back, it went back and forth. Finally got approved, we finally picked them out, and as far as I know, they got ordered last year.
Why the retractable on one side?
So we were going to go with all stationary ones, but they don't seat as many people with the amount of square footage that we have. So if we had gone stationary on both sides of the ring, we would have only had seating capacity for like 264 people. But the retractable ones go up a little higher and have an extra row. They provided more seating. We were trying to maintain, Wade and I had been working on this with them in initial designs. Got for almost the last year now, but we were trying to maintain seating for like 400 people, which is significantly less than we ever had. At one time, that building had seating for almost 900, it's got down to 600 and some. Now all of a sudden, we're cutting it down to 400. If we had gone all stationary, it would have been 200 and some, I mean. It's not very many seats anymore, I mean, a good sport tournament will get you 300 people, so.
are the bleachers as long as the old ones used to be?
Yes.
Up and down both sides?
Yeah, they take up about the same footprint, but since we are obligated to meet all the ADA requirements, they just. You don't get nearly as many seats anymore instead of bleachers.
Those walkways or wheelchair ways?
Yeah. And then the east side of the building will be the stationary side, those will have elevator platform lifts for handicapped people for wheelchairs. The other side that's retractable, they have a cutout portion for ADA, that meets the ADA requirements. So it was kind of the best combination we could have with the footprint we had to get the most seating. And that's where every time we turn around there, oh, we might have to cut 2 or 3 off and this and that, and we're trying to maintain that seating for 400.
Some email, they talked about ice plant, getting installed in the mechanical building. New roof for the grand dining area. And those different things. Yeah, that's kind of what we're paying for. Any other questions or points discussed? Hearing none, I will ask for a motion to, accept this bid.
Make a motion.
Motion from Counselor Grant, anybody that would like to second or support that?
A second.
We have a second from Counselor Ekman, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried, moving on to 11.11, council chamber sound system discussion. Is this?
This was just a general discussion and brought up that we should talk about at the council meeting, because apparently we're getting on more multiple complaints that the audio is not very good, and they're trying to watch it at home, so it's put it on the agenda.
Sounds good.
So, if you want to investigate, you said like Range TV or whatever, you used to come in and video it, we still have a contract with them, but obviously we're not paying them to come in and video the council meetings anymore. Aurora does some things a little bit different, they use the owl for sound, not for audio or vice versa.
Use it for video, but not for audio.
And there's some other options we could look at if, unless this starts working better.
So maybe we can just have, not those same microphones we had, but just some kind of little microphones that go in between each of us.
I'm sure there is.
The design of this building, the sound kind of goes up to the ceilings, and
Yeah.
Aurora you can hear pretty good, it's in a nice flat ceiling, so it doesn't bounce all around, but.
If there's something you want me to start looking at, I can. See what options there are.
I think that'd be good, because a lot of people can't hear, but I've got a lot of complaints.
Yeah.
I've heard them too, people say that they can't hear anybody. Which leads me to a question, all this stuff that's hanging over here and plugged in. What exactly is that? I mean, are we drawing power and keeping something warm?
I guess I don't know why it's plugged in.
Something is, I mean, we've got two cords coming down, and one from the speaker up above. I don't know if that speaker is connected to anything. But I'm just curious if that system is functional, if not, why it's there, or if it's plugged in, are we paying for electric power to keep something
I don't see it.
warm or ready?
Yeah, I'm
Just-
sure that was what they used when they had Wasabi TV,
Yeah,
record everything, they would.
I never logged on,
Set that
like,
up.
'cause I didn't, it's not like.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's,
I'm asking because
Yeah.
I can remember watching the meetings where the counselors had to
yeah.
push the button and the red light would come on, they spoke and that was it, but looking at that archaic stuff.
Should we test it out sometime?
I mean, there's so much, Bluetooth and capabilities, is there some way we can have, little microphones?
Well, they got everything
Like,
cordless now.
or- Yeah,
I know, I can just say, in the time that I've been here, I've seen about 4 or 5 different systems. Up there, the ones where they had key to mic, the ones that were automatic voice activated, but when people started talking and speaking over each other, it was bad. They got complaints because the key ones, people would forget to turn them on. I mean, I don't know what the right answer is, and I've seen the ones they had where they flipped them to their collar and that, and for some reason those didn't work.
We look at other cities and see like what systems they use and. Watch
We're
it.
gonna go back. Well, sort of hybrid, but if it's something you want me to look into
Yeah, I think it was it, this is
it,
such
bring
a
some options back.
issue for a while, and we've tried different things, and there still continues to be audio issues. Probably wouldn't hurt to, I mean, not spending a significant amount of time, but if you have some extra time to look into some of those things.
Maybe they have an external mic for those.
Once like it,
yeah, I mean, I think the system we have, as far as where it's broadcast, on Owl, goes to YouTube, I think that's a good. System as far as for broadcast meetings, but yeah, the audio is hard, so. Without reinventing the whole wheel, hopefully there's something we can add on.
Well, I've seen like there's boosters or something that can increase the volume, things like that without, like maybe research it a little bit and see what we can do.
So I'll take a motion to direct city staff to, when they have available time, to do a little bit of research into kind of some alternative, sound system this kind of solve the audio issue. So anybody that'd like to make a motion for that?
I would.
Make a motion, or motion from Counselor
I'll
Jarvis,
second.
second from Counselor Ekman, all those in favor?
I,
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. We took care of 11.12, when Mr. Sweeney was here, so I'll move on from that. So there's nothing else on the agenda, other than adjournment. Is there anybody that'd like to make a motion for that?
Make that motion.
Motion from Counselor Grant, second from Counselor Jarvis, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you.